Good afternoon. Welcome to the monthly Interreligious Association for Peace and Development, in short, IAPD Peace Forum. My name is Tomiko Dagan. I am a Senior Vice President of the Universal Peace Federation, USA, and the Program Director for the IAPD Peace Forum. Title of today's forum is The Role of Faith Communities, an approach through people-to-people engagement toward peace and the reunification on the Korean Peninsula. This monthly webinar is the IAPD Peace Forum on Korea. It's a project of the Universal Peace Federation, which is an NGO in general consultative status with the Economic Social Council of the UN. We are inviting faith leaders, experts, and concerned civic leaders to address issues on peace in the Korean Peninsula and offers their understanding and wisdom regarding steps toward the peaceful reunification of Korean Peninsula. Now, I'd like to invite the moderator of today's program, Dr. Michael Jenkins, President of UPF International and the Chairman of UPF North America. Welcome, Dr. Jenkins. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Vice President Duggan. Welcome to all of our viewers. Every Tuesday, we have a program that is focused on peace in Northeast Asia, particularly reconciliation and the peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula. You know, it was just 70 years ago since the outbreak of the Korean War, and the peoples of North and South Korea have remained divided ever since. There's still legally a war on. At the 38th parallel, the dividing line is there. And Reverend Dr. Myung Moon, our founder, and Dr. Hak Chan Moon visited North Korea in November of 1991. Our 30th anniversary of that visit is about to occur. And it was an unimaginable personal meeting with North Korea's great leader, as he's called at that time, Kim Il-sung, and a dramatic effort to initiate a reconciliation of two nations. Because of that meeting, it was not simple, because North Korea, Kim Il-sung had sent 25 assassins to South Korea to eliminate Reverend Moon, and he was seen by Russian newspapers and also in North Korea as the #1 anti-communist in the world. Our founder was in communist prison for 2 years and 8 months in Hungnam, North Korea. And his wife, Dr. Hak Chan Moon, who's now leading us as he has passed away a few years ago, she also escaped as a young girl with her Christian grandmother and mother. And she married Dr. Moon, and then they really developed this whole worldwide movement for peace, hoping to see the reunification of this beautiful country of Korea. So that meeting generated such a breakthrough because they went to North Korea fearlessly to engage and call for dialogue and understanding. And because they were so forthright, and they weren't there to try to destroy through war or to bring about the recommendation that we have the extension of the war. They were there to show options for peace through dialogue and cooperation. Because of that, Kim Jong-il, Kim Il-sung's son, who became the dear leader, as known in North Korea, kept a positive relationship with the Moon family. And then finally, Kim Jong-un, the current chairman of North Korea, has kept good communication ongoing with the peace movement of Dr. Hak Chan Moon. And it's a very fascinating story. Today, we're going to take a look at one of the individuals who came south from North Korea. He escaped, and he's Mr. Kim. He escaped and has moved to America. He has a beautiful, beautiful testimony. His name is not his real name because it's not that we want to have people know who he is and where he is. But he is really thriving right now, and he's a very good person. And we're happy that he agreed to join us today. So he was pre-recorded. and on a TED Talk, and he is supporting our effort to dialogue for peace. So let's go ahead and welcome Mr. Kim.
Born and raised in North Korea. Although my family constantly struggled against poverty, I was always loved and cared for first, because I was the only son and the youngest of two in the family. But then the Great Famine began in 1994. I was 4 years old. My sister and I would go searching for firewood starting at 5 in the morning and come back after midnight. I would wander the streets searching for food, and I remember seeing a small child tied to a mother's back eating chips and wanting to steal them from him. Hunger is humiliation. Hunger is hopelessness. For a hungry child, politics and freedom are not even thought of. On my 9th birthday, my parents couldn't give me any food to eat. But even as a child, I could feel the heaviness in their hearts. Over 1 million North Koreans died of starvation in that time. And in 2003, when I was 13 years old, my father became one of them. I saw my father wither away and die. In the same year, my mother disappeared one day. And then my sister told me that she was going to China to earn money, but that she would return with money and food soon. Since we had never been separated, and I thought we would be together forever, so I didn't even give her a hug when she left. It was the biggest mistake I have ever made in my life. But again, I didn't know it was going to be a long goodbye. I have not seen my mom and my sister since then. Suddenly, I became an orphan and homeless. My daily life became very hard, but very simple. My goal was to find a dusty piece of bread in the trash, but that is no way to survive. I started to realize begging would not be the solution. So I started to steal from food carts in illegal markets. Sometimes I found small jobs in exchange for food. Once I even spent 2 months in the winter working in a coal mine, 33 meters underground, without any protections for up to 16 hours a day. I was not uncommon. Many other orphans survived this way, or worse. When I could not fall asleep from bitter colds or hunger pains, I hoped that the next morning my sister would come back to wake me up with my favorite food. That hope kept me alive. I don't mean big, grand hope. I mean the kind of hope that made me believe that the next trash can had bread, even though it usually didn't. But if I didn't believe it, I wouldn't even try, and then I would die. Hope kept me alive. Every day I told myself, no matter how hard things got, still I must live. After 3 years of waiting for my sister's return, I decided to go to China to look for her myself. I realized I couldn't survive much longer this way. I knew the journey would be risky, but I would be risking my life either ways. I could die of starvation like my father in North Korea, or at least I can try for a better life by escaping to China. I had learned that many people try to cross the border to China in the nighttime to avoid being seen. North Korean border guards often shoot and kill people trying to cross the border without permission. Chinese soldiers will catch and send back North Koreans where they face severe punishment. I decided to cross during the day. First, because I was still a kid and scared of the dark. Second, because I knew I was already taking a risk. And since not many people try to cross during the day, I thought I might be able to cross without being seen by anyone. I made it to China on February 15, 2006. I was 16 years old. I thought things in China would be easier since there was more food. I thought more people would help me, but it was harder than living in North Korea. Because I was not free, I was always worried about being caught and sent back. By a miracle, some months later, I met someone who was running an underground shelter for North Koreans and was allowed to live there and eat regular meals for the first time in many years. Later that year, an activist helped me escape China and go to the United States as a refugee. I went to America without knowing a word of English, yet my social worker told me that I had to go to high school. Even in North Korea, I was an F student. And I barely finished elementary school. And I remember I bored in school more than once a day. Textbooks and library were not my playground. My father tried very hard to motivate me into studying, but it didn't work. One point, my father gave up on me. He said, "You're not my son anymore." I was only 11 or 12, but it hurt me deeply. But nevertheless, my level of motivation still didn't change before he died. So in America, it was kind of ridiculous that they said I should go high school. I didn't even go to middle school. I decided to go just because they told me to, without trying much. But one day I came home and my foster mother had made chicken wings for the dinner. And during the dinner, I wanted to have one more wing, but I realized there were not enough for everyone, so I decided to against it. When I looked down at my plate, I saw the last chicken wing that my foster father had given me his. I was so happy. I looked at him sitting next to me. He just looked me back with very warmly, but said no word. Suddenly, I remembered my biological father. My foster father's small act of love reminded me of my father, who would love to share his food with me when he was hungry, even if he was starving. I felt so suffocated that I had so much food in America, yet my father died of starvation. My only wish that night was to cook a meal for him. And that night, I also thought of what else I could do to honor him. And my answer was to promise to myself that I would study hard and get the best education in America to honor his sacrifice. I took school seriously, and for the first time ever in my life, I received an academic award for excellence and made Dean's List from the first semester in high school. That chicken wing changed my life. Hope is personal. Hope is something that no one can give to you. You have to choose to believe in hope. You have to make it yourself. In North Korea, I made it myself. Hope brought me to America. But in America, I didn't know what to do because I had this overwhelming freedom. My foster father at that dinner gave me a direction, and he motivated me and gave me a purpose to live in America. I did not come here by myself. I had hope, but hope by itself is not enough. Many people helped me along the way to get here. North Koreans are fighting hard to survive. They have to force themselves to survive, have hope to survive, but they cannot make it without help. This is my message to you. Have a hope for yourself, but also help each other. Life can be hard for everyone, wherever you live. My foster father didn't intend to change my life. In the same way, you may also change someone's life with the even smallest act of love. A piece of bread can satisfy your hunger, and having the hope will bring you bread to keep you alive. But I confidently believe that your act of love and caring can also save another Joseph's life and change thousands of other Josephs who are still having hope to survive. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph Kim. Thank you, thank you. What a very deep and moving testimony. We have no idea of the suffering that goes on all throughout the world, and especially with North Korea. I was very sad, and I'm just very deeply moved. We really pray that such a fine person can become more known, and that we can also help others. And how do we do that in such a way that we actually open up the door for all of North Korea to be free, and that we do that with the work of peace? That's our hope. That's our desire. So I'm very grateful for this program today, and I'm so happy we could have this time together. Our first speaker today is Swami Parameshananda. He's a very, very highly respected spiritual leader of the Bharat Sevashram Sangha Incorporated. Swamiji, please speak to the suffering of the people and how spiritual leaders can cooperate together to help alleviate the suffering of the North Korean people and people throughout the world. Welcome. Swamiji?
We might have lost him. Oh, he's coming back in. 1 second.
He'll be right back. You know, we had the Rally of Hope this last Saturday night in America and Sunday morning in Korea, and it was very hopeful. But again, I think that Mother Moon's position is to really love your enemy. That's how Mother Moon went to North Korea. In her memoir, The Mother of Peace, she testifies how they spent time in Hawaii to purify themselves. For several days, they traveled around the island, the big island of Hawaii, where Kona is. And they went around that island again and again, just like Joshua ran around the city of Jericho. And for days and days in silence, they purified themselves so that when they went to North Korea to meet Kim Il-sung, there was no shred of anger or hatred or judgment. There was only a pure heart to try to embrace him and liberate all people. So that's why the religious leaders here today are extremely important, because the meeting between Kim Il-sung and Mother Moon and Father Moon was based on religious condition. It was based on a heart of love and a purity of prayer. So Swamiji, we're so happy to see you, and please guide us on how we might bring peace and address even this North Korean situation. Any thoughts you might have on the testimony of Mr. Joseph Kim, who came out of that starvation and suffering. Welcome, Swamiji. If you could unmute, please unmute your microphone. And we're just, we had a wonderful peace ceremony with Swamiji on the Rally of Hope in front of 50 million people. He was on doing prayers with other faith leaders. Welcome, Swamiji.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jenkins. I'm on. Everything's good?
Yes.
Yes.
You're on. You look great.
Well, listening to the story of that young man, I think it's motivation. And I was looking for the motivation to get the right words to start this program in my contribution. And that a saying goes like this: human effort always warrants and summons God's grace. So when I'm speaking like that, that's the hope that we're talking about. And he made that human effort. He never gave up. And to go through all those trials and tribulations in North Korea and decide to go to China, and then being there, and then the miracle happened that he would have come to America. This is the kind of thing that today I want to do a two-pronged approach to my contribution. That, you know, we are spiritual beings having a human experience rather than human beings having a spiritual experience. One, that we're trying and we're there, and we have that religiousness in us, but more so that there's something higher than religion, spirituality. Because religion, it's something that we study about God, but spirituality, we go and we want to know God, who God is. There's a big difference, because that wanting to know God, whoever we call him, whether it be Christ or Krishna or Allah or whatever religion, you Buddha, when we try to know that God, because they all have set an example how we should live our lives. They don't want to tell us how great they are and their God, but they want us to also become God-like. So this human heart thing that you were talking, Dr. Jenkins, that's where it comes from. And in the Korean Peninsula, that is so necessary at this point in time, because when Dr. Sangha Moon and they went there, I think they went with that heart, that feeling, that vibration of godliness was with them. That was their main ingredient for that that meeting. And that has been continued by the UPF organization. And I know you, Dr. Jenks, Dr. Mr. Dugan, this is where you gain your strength from. But remember, if we go beyond the realm of this thing that we call spirituality, which is higher than religion, where we don't see differentiation between our faith traditions. Because in essence, when you look, there's only one truth, that all religions lead to that one truth. And when we come to that one truth, then we understand the play of the Lord. Now, negotiations are necessary when this spirituality is not there prevalent. So this is where the academia comes in. And in the last time I was listening to President Trump, and he would have done very well as a politician in the free world, leader of the free world, to go there and infuse that trust in the North Korean leader there. And I think it worked, but at the same time, they have to be like, they have a saying that you cannot put a wolf and a sheep in the same place. One will devour the other. So we have to have mutual strength when we negotiate in the academic level. And a military strength certainly is a deterrent, and to gain that strength. But we have to watch that there have to be a good balance where the heart and the hand has to have the same power. So my contribution today is like, let us have that balance and the faith that when we go there, today I come with my organization, a spiritual master, Bharat Sevashram, monks all over the India, that Mahatma Gandhi, when he liberated India from the British in 1947, he would have used that strength. But then he wasn't a politician. And then the separation of Pakistan from India, that was not a very good move, because we see the atrocities that came after that. So we have to always keep in mind that we have to have a good balance. And in the North and the Korean Peninsula, both of these methodology has to put in place. Let us have a heart, and at the same time, let us have the deterrent of, that lions and lions have to live side by side. And then there will be negotiations to bring down and escalate the tension that we've seen has been coming up very recently. You know, democracy is a very powerful thing, because democracy looks at a democratic leader will look at the welfare of the people. But when in a home, when a child inherits a property, he doesn't know how it comes, and he claims ownership of that property. This is, we've seen that situation in North Korea there, but the hope is there that with the strength of a organization, UPF, my organization, all the faith leaders, religious leaders coming together today, that we will have that vibration, that divine vibration, where miracles can come out of it. Let us hope for a miracle in that region. For this, I pray that let us all come together. Let us not let religion be a dividing factor, but a unifying factor. And also let us go beyond religion and see each other as one. Hari Om, Shanti, Shanti, Hari Om. Peace, peace. Thank you, Dr. Jenkins, and thank you all for listening to my humble contribution.
Swami, what a wonderful, wonderful expression of spirituality, and that we are spiritual beings trying to be human and negotiating our human condition, but we are first, we're spiritual beings. And the internal principles of faith and prayer and spiritual life is what can bring peace. And I'm so glad you mentioned Mahatma Gandhi. I was so deeply moved by his work in the Phoenix settlement, which I visited in South Africa one time. And also I was amazed at how Mahatma Gandhi got inspired, because he read all scriptures and he really understood all religions. And when Leo Tolstoy wrote his book, The Kingdom of God is Within You, it was Mahatma Gandhi that took that principle of nonviolence and really, really grasped that teaching of Jesus and advocated it. And through that, he transformed Africa. He transformed the whole world that way. And the person that picked it up from Mahatma Gandhi was Dr. Martin Luther King. Dr. Martin Luther King, when he was in Boston University, he said he studied Mahatma Gandhi. And that's when he learned of that influence of Tolstoy to Mahatma Gandhi on that principle of nonviolence and peaceful non-cooperation, but spiritual, as Martin Luther King did it with love. And therefore, I believe if we bring the religious leaders together to support the opening of North Korea in a peaceful way, without any kind of war, but really with the heart to liberate the people and give them freedom, how great it will be. And one of the leaders we're about to meet here has been to the border of North Korea on many occasions. He's been to the Republic of Korea many, many, many times, dozens and dozens of times. And he's a great advocate for peace. Archbishop George Augustus Stallings Jr. is the founder and the prelate of Imani Temple. And Archbishop Stallings also is the chairman of the Interreligious Association for Peace and Development for North America. And I've worked with him for many years, and I want to express how much confidence I have in his ability to bring spirituality into difficult situations and overcome those situations with love, but also the principles of really understanding God's heart and understanding God's word and understanding that the internal conditions actually open up the door for external reconciliation. So, Archbishop, you're our leader of the IAPD for North America. We're so grateful to welcome you at this time. Welcome to Archbishop George Augustus Stallings Jr.
Thank you very much, Dr. Michael W. Jenkins, my spiritual brother from the same spiritual mother. Thank you to Mrs. Tomiko Duggan, who does an excellent work in bringing us together as religious leaders to work together to bring our spiritual and religious presence to that inestimable work of true parents, especially of Dr. Hak Ja Han Moon, the Mother of Peace, to work assiduously for bringing about the reunification of the Korean Peninsula, that beautiful nation that we call the land of the morning sun, the morning calm, the morning calm. We are excited about this progression that is building within the religious community to work together as one, engaging in what we would call people-to-people diplomacy or engagement, people-to-people engagement, which also echoes in a way that soft power approach, that back channel, the unofficial route to working towards peace and reunification of the Korean Peninsula as political leaders, whether they be heads of state or legislatures or judicial branches of government, work to bring about peace on that hard power platform. I am moved by the words of my beloved brother Swami, whose depths of spirituality resonate with my own spirituality. When I heard our beloved Swami speaking about us being spiritual beings, practicing to be human, not human beings, attempting to become spiritual, and as you echoed those same words, Dr. Jenkins, in your comments after our beloved brother Swami spoke, I said, that is where I am as a religious leader, understanding that God is the source of spirituality, that God is the, if you will, the creator of spirituality. And religion is man's response, man and woman's response. Organized religion is man and woman's response to find their way back to that unbroken connection with God as creator and as our heavenly parent. It was God's intention, God as creator, God's intention from the very beginning that humanity live as one and not live in division. Such a world would reflect and manifest the oneness of God in substantial form, all of us coming forth from that oneness of God. When we read in the sacred scriptures, in that first book of the Bible, in Genesis chapter 1, verse 26, God says, let us make man in our own image and after our likeness. And then we hear how God bestowed upon Adam and Eve, called to be the true parents who would reflect God's true life, true love, and true lineage and pass it on, not only to their children, but to their grandchildren, all the way down to this present age and generation. We know that God then gave them three great, powerful blessings. God said to them, be fruitful and multiply and have dominion over the earth, that God desired his children, namely Adam and Eve, to reach a level of personal, individual spirituality where they could then come together as husband and wife, bring forth children through multiplication, and they as a blessed central family would be able to stand together on the foundation of God's love, life, and lineage and take dominion over the earth. And that dominion would create that oneness that God so desired from the very beginning. We know that we live in a world that is divided by religion, by politics, by economics, by social mores. We know that we live in a broken, a fragmented, a contaminated world. And the role of the religious leader is to stand in the gap, as it were, to be the voice, piece, or the spokesperson for God, who is our creator and our heavenly parent, standing as leaders, engaging in people-to-people engagement or soft power or two-track diplomacy, not in the same way as the heads of states through presidents and prime ministers and legislatures using hard power to bring about the reunification of North and South Korea, but standing together as men and women of faith, as Swami, as our brother Swami said, built on spirituality, on transcending religion, respecting our various religions, yes, but there's something that calls us to go beyond and above our religious beliefs and persuasion, to embrace that spirituality, which is that universal principle by which we discover the divinity of our identity, that God resides within each and every one of us. And when we bring forth that out of one another, when we look for the divine within each other, we can transcend the limitations of politics and religion and even socioeconomic considerations to really work for true and lasting peace. Dr. Jenkins, you referred to the late Dr. Martin Luther King's reading of the philosophy of the great Mahatma Gandhi, how he formed his own sense of nonviolence, his philosophy of nonviolence, in main part by what he learned from the great Mahatma Gandhi. Yet at the same time, he realized that on the American front, that those principles were not just fit for India, but also for the entire world, for the United States and the entire world. And so when we look at the words of King, they very much echo Gandhi's philosophy. And there's one statement that Martin Luther King wrote in 1963 while imprisoned in the Birmingham jail in the state of Alabama, when he was addressing issues to the white clergy there in Alabama, especially in Birmingham. He said these words: in a real sense, all life is interconnected. All men and women are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. What affects one directly affects all indirectly. And so we may look at the situation in North Korea and what exists in South Korea, and we say, well, those are Korean people. Those are their issues. That's their situation to resolve. That's their circumstance. But if we understand this inescapable network of mutuality bound together in a single garment of destiny, as King says, then we realize that those persons in the land of the morning call, on the peninsula of Korea, are not just simply other people or other citizens. They are, in reality, our brothers and sisters, if we look at it from a spiritual perspective. And so what is affecting them directly also reverberates and affects us indirectly. What we as religious leaders are called to do is to elevate this tension that exists between brothers and sisters from the same nation, only divided by the 38th parallel line. As Dr. Jenkins stated, the American Clergy Leadership Conference visited South Korea, the Republic of Korea, and went to the 38th parallel innumerable times. And we stood there and looked across that line toward North Korea. And I can say without one scintilla of a doubt that each one of us as religious leaders, particularly as Christian ministers from America, were so deeply touched and affected to the point of shedding tears when we realized that this is just not simply a dividing line between two peoples who are of the same blood, but that this was also our brothers and sisters who could not reconnect and live together as one people, speaking the same language, having the same culture, people who were separated and divided as a result of man's inhumanity towards man, as a result of war. And what the Korean War did to that nation, that one nation, how it divided peoples, obviously has affected world events, not just on the peninsula, but around the world. And that one would say, is it possible for there to be a reunification, a peaceful reunification of North and South Korea? And I say, yes, it is possible. Yes, we can achieve the reunification of North and South America. Yes, North and South Korea. Yes, we as Americans, as religious leaders, we as religious leaders worldwide, in Asia, in Europe, Central, South America, in Africa, in Australia, in New Zealand, we can do this because we are of one blood. We are the children of God. And so we must make this effort of the reunification of the Korean Peninsula between North and South Korea a reality, that we can not only pray that things will change, but you and I can employ the power of prayer to the extent that it will change people so that people can change things. It is within our power to make this happen. We have a very powerful, influential leader in True Mother, in Dr. Hak Jahan Moon, who is the epitome of peace. That is why she wears the mantle Mother of Peace, because she realizes what true leadership is, spiritual leadership. That is why Mother Moon is always talking about uniting in love, in peace and in reconciliation, forgiving each other, moving on, because she realizes that we have the power to change people so that people can change things. And it's all through the medium of prayer. John Maxwell, the guru of leadership, defines leadership simply as the ability to influence. And we have in the person of Dr. Hak Jahan Moon, the Mother of Peace, a true leader who can influence nations, not just her own family, not just her own religious house, but as a deeply spiritual woman, as a woman rooted deeply in spirituality. She is challenging us as religious leaders to move beyond the limitations of our denominations, our religions, and embrace a level of spirituality that can truly work towards spiritual transformation. It's amazing. I have seen change come about in religious leaders when they come together for a common cause. And the Mother of Peace has called each and every one of us as religious leaders to engage in a people-to-people engagement that can touch the hearts of individuals, just as our beloved brother Swami touched our hearts with his reflection, as Dr. Jenkins echoed those words. We can touch the hearts of one another. That is why True Mother created two powerful organizations that help us to come together as religious leaders so that we can use our not only religious influence, but our spiritual moorings or our spiritual roots to bring about change. She created the World Christian Leadership Conference, the WCLC, and to embrace all the world's religions, she created the IAPD, the Interreligious Association for Peace and Development. These two organizations bring together the religious leadership in our world. And under the aegis or the leadership or the guidance of True Mother, the Mother of Peace, she is asking us to use the wealth, the spiritual or the religious wealth of our denominations to bear upon the spiritual ascendancy, to lead us to a spiritual ascendancy where we can really use prayer to change not only things, but prayer that can also change people so that people can change things. We return back to God's original plan for the world when we seek to create oneness. In the scriptures of the New Testament, in Ephesians, in Paul's letter to the church at Ephesus, Ephesians chapter 4, verse 3, we read these words: make every effort to preserve the unity which has the Spirit as its origin and peace as its binding force. We all have the presence of the Spirit within us, and we can create unity not only in our respective nations, but we can pray for peace and reunification on the Korean Peninsula. Because the way that that land of the morning calm goes in the next few years will be the way the Middle East goes, the way the rest of the world will follow. And just think how blessed and fortunate we are to be alive in this generation.
Yes, sir.
We were born for such a time as this. God chose the date and the time for each one of us to be the physical the physical building where the Spirit of God would dwell within us. That we have the power, we have the wherewithal, we have the spiritual guidance of God present within each and every one of us to work to bring together the human family. And until we come to that point where we are all together in unity, until we reach that point where we see each other as brothers and sisters, where we will study war no more, and we will work to bring back peoples to be one of one blood and one nation, our work is not yet accomplished. I pray that God will give each one of us length of days, a long life, that we might see the coming of the reunification of the Korean Peninsula in our lifetime. And we may be able to say that we had some small role to play in bringing that nation back together. That is our hope, that is our prayer, and that is what we will strive for until that day comes. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you, Archbishop Stallings. Thank you so much for your heart and prayer and seriousness at this time. Archbishop Stallings stood with Mother Moon in Goree Island, where the passage of no return, going across the Middle Passage, where 12 million people were enslaved and put on slave ships, and many never made it to the other shores. He was there at Goree Island with Mother Moon. And the first thing Mother Moon asked for after he was there was his testimony. She wanted his testimony because of his prayerful heart to understand what God is doing right now, that only through spiritual power can we really liberate North Korea. Archbishop, we're really so grateful for your unchanging faith and your understanding of the spiritual leadership of true father and true mother, our true parents. It really is profound. So I want to ask you and Swami to come back together. If you could bring us all on the screen. And we want to have a little bit of a discussion here based on this teaching we shared today. And this video will be made available, everybody, because this is really teaching that will endure for ages. So Archbishop, thank you for your teaching. What is it about Mother Moon from the spiritual point of view that gave you confidence after her husband went to heaven that she was going to lead us all the way to the time of peace? What visible experiences or what comes to your mind and heart when you think about Mother that way?
But when I think about Mother that way, Dr. Jenkins, and her relationship to True Father, to the Reverend Dr. Myung Moon, I saw unity. I saw oneness in them. I never saw two persons who were acting independently of the other. They were always unified in their firm belief that we are all children of God. And it was so real. What I saw in them was that it was just not simply, they were not words, they were just not thoughts. They put those thoughts and words into action. And they did so in such a unified way that when I saw one, I saw the other. So for me, when True Father physically died and spiritually ascended in 2011, it was it 2000? Let's see, 2011 was it, Dr. Jenkins? I'm losing time. What?
2012 September,
2012. In September 2012, in one sense, his presence was still there in the person of his wife because he and Dr. Hak Jahan worked together so closely in working towards not only the reunification of the Korean Peninsula, but working to establish a world of true and loving peace built on the foundation of living for the sake of others and loving your enemy.
Yes.
And
Wow.
in a real way, it's challenging. How do we love our enemy? I struggle with that each and every day, let me tell you right now. I'm going to make a personal confession as I sit here before you. I'm struggling with loving my enemy, but I realize I don't have any other choice. If I'm going to be not only a genuine, authentic person where divinity reigns, where it lives and where it should reign, but also because true parents focus on that so completely and unstintingly. And that if we are to truly work towards a world of true and lasting peace, somehow we have to constantly make accommodation in our own personal lives for loving our enemy. But the point is that I never saw Father and Mother Moon as two individuals working outside of the context of each other. They were always unified. They were always oneness. They were always one. And that is what they were seeking to achieve, to show that in the oneness of their relationship, they were manifesting the oneness of God in the fullest extent. As husband and wife, united together as one, the two becoming one, they reflected in a substantial way the invisible God.
Thank you, Archbishop. Beautiful, beautiful. Swami Ji, you know Father and Mother Moon for many years. You came to Korea with the religious leaders. What's your testimony of how you see this movement of UPF and the work for peace, bringing peace through the spiritual leadership? What touches your heart about what you have seen in Korea at our international conferences that really touched you?
Well, Dr. Jenkins, Dr. Stallings, it's so nice to be in your company. The family structure is the that image that is projected in a good family structure, husband, wife, children.
Wow.
It's so necessary because that's the foundation of society. That when we see that as an example, and that's demonstrated by the Father and Mother Moon there. And this is what is going to be carried forward. And this is what is going to give strength to families who are struggling, that they don't have that coherenceness. Because the masses of people in this world, they go through that life of marriage and husband and wife and getting children and nurturing children. But the nurturing of children should not only be academic, but it should be religious, and then it leads to spirituality. Because without that balance, then you get academic, and the academic that I'm talking about is to study what God created. But spirituality is one that studies God himself, God without a name and form. Because in our Hindu tradition, at one point in time, there was no creation. And from that great consciousness, which is the highest state of God, God without name and form, without time and place, from that the whole universe came into existence. So when we study the universe, being a doctor, whoever we are, and then that just studying what God created. But spirituality studies, and through the grace of God, through human effort, that we can know who God is. And know something, when you find out, then you say, oh, wait a minute, that God that I pray to, I am that God. A little window will open up, and then
Yes.
the window opens
Oh,
wider.
you hit a nerve there.
Yes.
And the window opens wider, and you say, wait a minute, the person I'm praying to is, I'm that person. But that realization has to come. And this is spirituality, and it has to come from student life, has to be right. And then marriage life has to be right. And then when you're ready to renounce the world and look for peace, and your whole life is look for peace, like we're doing, we think we're little aged people. So we have the time, the wisdom that we've gone through student life and being in the married life. That wisdom and experience that we're bringing to this table of reconciliation of the Korean Peninsula. This is the power that we bring. the vibration that we're bringing. And this is what's going to cause the transformation. And miracles will happen when human effort and God's grace come together. That is what we call miracle.
Yes, so true, so powerfully echoed, my beloved brother Swami. It's a process, as you said. That's what's really contained in that first great blessing that God bestowed upon Adam and Eve when he told them to be fruitful. The reality is that most of the world's population has yet to become fruitful in the context of spiritual growth, development, and maturation. And as you said so well, my beloved brother, until we come to that realization of just who we are, what is our real identity as persons who have been robed in flesh, that we are spirit beings robed in flesh, that we are little gods in G minor, as I often say, my beloved brother, because we have the divine traits, characteristics, and attributes of the Creator within us. We have that spiritual DNA, but so many have yet to come to understand it, to embrace it. And I recall a passage in the Bible, in the New Testament, in 1 John chapter 3, verses 1 and 2. 1 John chapter 3, verses 1 and 2. It says, "See what love God the Father has bestowed upon us, that we may be called the children of God." And so we are. But the reason why the world does not know who we are is because it does not know him. It doesn't know God. It says we are children of God already, but what we shall become, what we shall be has not yet been revealed. But when it is revealed, we shall be like God, or as God, for we shall see God as God is. And the reality is that most people never reach that point. They don't have to be like you, a monk. They don't have to be like me, a priest. They don't have to be like Dr. Jenkins, a pastor. No, it's incumbent upon all of us who are children of God to come to an understanding and a realization and actualization of our realness, of our authentic, genuine selves.
Amen. Swamiji and Archbishop, this is such a beautiful moment. Swamiji, you brought up family. Family is the universal value that raises us in love. And then you touched on the divine, that we are divine beings. And Archbishop, I think, is the leading scholar on this area, that actually God intended us not to be just his objects, but his partners, co-creators. And we have a divinity inside. And that's what Jesus talked about. And many of us as Christians have never fully understood that we are one with our Hindu family and with the other spiritual families. They talk about perfection. And that's why Jesus said, you must be perfect as your Heavenly Father is perfect. So actually, Archbishop Stallings is on his way to perfect divinity.
I'm trying.
Being one with God. And
that's right, yeah.
Go ahead, Swami. Tell us about perfection and being divine, because God is in you.
Yeah, that perfection, this should be our life quest.
Yes.
That, if we get bogged down in trying to measure ourselves up to ordinary human beings, then we'll be measuring up to imperfections, and we would not get that perfection. So our target, our eyes and ears should be set on that one goal, that realization that we are that God that we pray to. And when we get it, we have to bring all the people along with us. This is why when Christ came and Krishna came, they would have nullified the negative energy of 700 million people. That was a calculation done, that the presence of that personality nullified negativity. That's why we want to be in like-minded people. Here we are with Dr. Jenkins and the Bishop and Mr. Dugan. We are like-minded people. We're moving in the same direction. We feed each other. We build from each other. And we want to create some more of these building blocks as individuals. And this is the direction that we have to take. There's no other way.
Woo. Well, Swamiji, I just would love for you to give a retreat to my members. To my congregation, I would just love to have you as a retreat master to share these deep spiritual principles, because they'll realize, hey, our bishop is not the only one saying these things. He's not the only one who believes this, that these are universal truths. Yes, universal spiritual divine principles, yes. And we need to teach them to our people. And it's great to have another person, you know, for them to hear it from another source. They'll realize, wow, that's the miracle. The real miracle is that we become the fullest manifestation of the God in us that is as perfection. As you said, it's our life's pursuit. And I think that is what helps me to pick myself back up again when I fall, because I realize it's a constant pursuit. I'm not going to get there overnight. And especially when I think I've reached there, then all hell breaks loose, as they would say. And I realize I still have to do some more work. There's still more progress that I have to make in my life. And how can we not use the power of our spirituality to have a conversation with God, the God in us, that we cannot somehow allow that same power to persuade North and South Korea to come together as one? And as you said, the power of the family, the power that exists in the family, God's ideal creation. How much more can we bring about the reunification of families in North and South Korea? I know of Koreans who live in South Korea who still have relatives in North Korea, and they are physically separated from one another. Imagine we being physically separated from our loved one. That's painful. I cannot even imagine being separated from my mother who's still alive, my sisters and brother, and never to be able to see them again, not to be able to communicate with them. What we want for ourselves, we have to want for our brothers and sisters in Korea.
Yes. Thank you, Archbishop. Thank you, Swami. Back to Joseph Kim, a beautiful, beautiful testimony of that.
Yeah.
A beautiful person. Now he's in America, thank God. But
yeah,
this is the course that Father and Mother Moon are talking about, that spirituality, spiritual leadership,
yes,
family, those two values. And Joseph talked about his family. It was sad, but it was also moving.
Yeah.
That even in North Korea, family is their only thing they can hold on to. And yet we will not unlock that door without spirituality and really realizing our divine power through unity. And that's why I'm so grateful for your leadership here today. Both of you have prayed in Korea for peace.
Yeah.
And it was so beautiful when Mother Moon had that stage set at the World Cup soccer stadium with 80,000 people there. And it was that time in November 2017 when war was really possible. But she gathered all the religious leaders on the stage, hundreds of religious leaders. You were both there.
Yes.
At the stadium. And we prayed. We prayed for peace. And, you know, we also heard from Inside Connections that the people in the North and the top leader there listened to everything she said. And she didn't say one bitter word or one criticism of the North. She said, we want to see peace. We want to see your families prosper. We want to see you happy and liberated. And then it was just 40 days later that the door of dialogue opened up and North Korea came to the Olympics. So I would like a final comment from each of you. Our time has run out, I'm sad to say. But if you could both just give a comment to end this program about family, peace, and how the spiritual leaders are going to even unlock Korea. How do you know that that's true, Swami? How do you know that the spiritual leaders are going to bring peace?
Well, this what we're discussing here today is definitely that myself and Bishop Stallings, yourself, Dr. Jenkins, and all who are listening, that we're well on that path. We have to get more people to come on this spiritual path. Yes. And it is not the count of individuals, but the vibration, the frequency of this divine vibration that we have to lift up. Because vibration travels like a radio station. We're talking here today, but we hear each other so far away. The same vibration that we have to send to that Korean Peninsula And, miracles would happen because divine vibrations nullify all negativism. And we want to lift ourselves that Christ and the Krishna who can nullify millions at their presence under the hearing of their voices. So this would be my take on that.
Thank you, Swamiji. All right, Archbishop, final word.
Thank you, Dr. Jenkins. I echo the words of my beloved brother, Swamiji, when he talked about the frequency of divine vibrations, discovering the God within, that energy that each one of us has been given by God. It's amazing when Jesus, the Christ, prepared to depart from the earth, he said to his disciples when they questioned him, when would the kingdom come? And he says, that is not for you to know. It is known only to the Father alone. But I can tell you this, you shall receive power from on high. What are we as religious leaders doing with this power from on high that we have received from God, our Creator and Heavenly Parent? What are we doing beyond the confines of our own denominations or religious belief systems to transcend to the level that we discover the commonality that binds us together as one universal family under God? I believe that true parents, in the persons of the Reverend Dr. Myung Moon and his beloved wife, Dr. Hak Chahan Moon, have been given an inestimable gift by God, centering on family, on man and woman, his husband and wife, bringing forth children of goodness to stand in a position where they, as a blessed central family, can take ownership and control over the universe, have dominion over all things, that we have it within our individual and collective power to make a change. And it begins with the leadership, the religious leadership, educating, and I know that my beloved brother Swamiji would agree with this. It begins with us educating our constituents, our adherents, our members or parishioners in these spiritual truths so that they can not only hear them, but imbibe and inculcate them into their everyday lives. And then we can make a change in our world where this world can be the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven here on earth, and we can truly live together in unity and peace.
I'm so grateful. I'm so moved. Swamiji and Archbishop, with your permission, I've got to end this program with some pictures of that you were in the peace walks and peace rallies in North Korea, at the door of North Korea. And there we are praying there at the DMZ. This is what Archbishop's talking about. We're looking at North Korea there. But how does this really work? How does this really help us? That's what Father and Mother Moon are teaching, that every enemy can be melted. So that's why they went to Russia to meet Gorbachev with that understanding. And they went to North Korea, even though Kim Il-sung had sent assassins to kill Father Moon, he still went there and treated him as his elder brother, and his heart opened. And look at, they're holding hands here. This is an unreal picture. Nobody holds hands with Chairman Kim in the North. And why? Because of heart. And then Mother Moon brought us to this stadium, and you both prayed there. We had the director of CIA, former director of CIA was moved, and Bishop Mears and other faith leaders all coming together. And here we are at the Chunjanggung together with Mother Moon right in the center there. These are all religious leaders. Look at this, all religious leaders. Here's Mother Hatum from Israel. There's also all of the faith leaders are here. Bishop Stallings, Swamiji, everybody's here. Hindu, Buddhist, Muslim, everybody's here. Why? Because that's the principle. Wherever we go, we always have the religious ceremony. Bishop Jones prayed there. Mother Moon prayed there. Then going to Africa, what do? We go to the place of suffering, and we do struggle, Bishop Stallings, we do struggle to love our enemy. And I'm so grateful for you because you never give up. And it is not easy, but through loving our enemy, we can even bring healing to Goree Island and bring healing between the family of man. So I just am so grateful for today's program. I think, Tomiko, it turned out far different, far more deep and rich. And we pray for Joseph Kim and all the defectors. We're coming for you. If you're on the program, we're coming. We're coming to Pyongyang. Nothing can stop the love of God
Yes.
Thank you. God bless. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jenkins. You know, you talked about the frequency, spiritual frequency. Actually, last time, Dr. Scholte, Suzanne Scholte, who is bringing actually radio, shortwave radio. The North Korean people are longing to hear
Oh, yes.
short waves and frequency. They are tuning to hear what we are sending to a good message. And Dr. Scholte, I remember it's very important for people in North Korea to remember people outside of North Korea care for them. And then that's their hope. So that's Dr. Scholte mentioned that. It's very, very important. Thank you for joining us. Next Thursday, we will, next one will be International Association for Peace and Economic Development. They'll talk about the economics, business, and trade relations for special economic zone. So it's very interesting program that the UPF is providing every Tuesday from 2 to 3. We look forward to seeing you. And also we have the UPF more internal education tomorrow from 2 to 3. We are also inviting special education. Swamiji, Parameshananda mentioned about the family. So we focus on marriage and family, and we are inviting one couple who is joining us from Pakistan. Their couple is sharing their special experience together with us from Pakistan tomorrow from 2 to 3. So we looking forward to seeing you. Bring you a beautiful frequency that we would like to tune in.
Thank you, Archbishop. Thank you, Dr. Duggan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Dr.
much.
Jenkins.
Thank you,
Thank you, Dr.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.